Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Of course, this is Lewis Lee. Who else would it be on the Lewis Lee podcast? Nonetheless, I want to take this opportunity to talk to you about and share some thoughts as I process a book that I've just finished that has been immensely impactful to me. The name of the book is Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave. Frederick Douglass, born in the early 1800s, born into slavery, escaped slavery about when he was 21 years old. Sorry, spoiler alert. But it's made known early that he did find his way to freedom, and I don't think that spoils the insights or the lessons or the experiences that Frederick captures in this book. And I thought I would share some of the essential points that stuck out to me and has made an impact on my life as I think about my own pursuit of freedom, which is tremendously much more than where Frederick started and where my ancestors have come from. So I don't want to do a disservice to them, and I don't want to degrade the progress that we have made, but seeing slavery from a first-person perspective is something that I feel is special, and hopefully some of the things that I took away from the book may resonate with you. And it's this desire of freedom that is the thread that runs through the entire book. And like I said, we've made a tremendous amount of progress. I am a free man, thanks to the great work and sacrifices of those that have come before us. I am a free man. However, progress is, to me, defined by gaining more control over your environment. And I think that's something that the free individual who is reading Frederick Douglass's narrative of his life can resonate with, of this desire to own your destiny and the ability to have more control over your fate is something that is inherently embedded into the human spirit. And as an American living in the 21st century, can't begin to imagine the horrors and the trauma that it would be to go through slavery. But we can resonate with this idea of wanting to have more flexibility, more accountability in our everyday lives and how we act, and the freedom to do what we believe is best with how we're viewing the world. And this is a desire, it's a theme that runs through the book, and it's inspiring to see Frederick and his different stages of life, of how he was looking at life and looking at potentially living a life that was free. And the first step to that was learning. During the time of slavery, it was not only illegal for a black person to be literate or to write, but it was also illegal for a white person to teach a black person how to read and write. Throughout history, one of the ways to oppress groups of people is to limit the amount of information that they have. When you think about the Martin Luther, when he translated the Bible from Latin into, I believe it was German, or Deutsch, into the native language of his community, it opened up the ability for people to enlighten themselves and to see the world in a different fashion rather than relying on a select group of people that had information. So in Frederick's case, he outlines the story of how when he was a young boy first learning how to read, that he got caught. And it's crazy to say that someone got caught learning how to read, and how offensive that could be. But he got caught, and the slave owner was furious, not only because of the threat that learning and education would cause to Frederick's ability to be obedient, but he tried to justify it as that if Frederick himself became enlightened and learned more about life, that it would only bring about misery. It would bring about more misery to realize his lot in life. And to me, this kind of brings me to the story of Adam and Eve and the tree of knowledge. This understanding of becoming enlightened not only reveals what's good about existence, but it also simultaneously reveals the negative aspects of it. When you become self-aware and when you become enlightened, you realize that you're not as enlightened as you think, and that there's much more that you don't know than what you do know. But then you also understand that you're vulnerable, and that you have capacity to not only endure the great tragedies of life, but also could be a conduit of afflicting such horrors onto other people. Reading was a threat to the white man during slavery, and the fact that they made it illegal points to how valuable the skill, the ability, and the desire to learn and to grow is. This, to me, reading and writing, for the people that have fought for me to have that ability to do it, to me, is a moral obligation for me to withhold that and to make that a priority in my life. People have literally protested and potentially lost their lives, all because they wanted to grow intellectually and bring their mind out of the dark. And seeing Frederick's desire to learn and understanding that that was his passport to freedom, that has made reading and writing all the more evident of how important it is and how essential it is to developing a better life. And as Frederick was pursuing a better life, obviously during slavery, nothing's easy. And his first attempt at escaping failed. He recounts the plan and the way he tried to go about it with a group of other slaves that he was close to. But he failed. And it became evident what he was trying to do, even though they didn't have any proof of it. But to me, what this shows is the ability to be resilient in the face of failure, and that you're not going to get it right the first time. It's very rare that you're going to get it right the first time. And with Frederick, the stakes were so high. He could have been sent further into the South to more aggressive slaveholders, slaveholders of Georgia, or he could have been lynched for the simple fact of trying to pursue a better life. And the first time he failed, and with the stakes so high, the failure didn't turn out as bad as it could have, and he still persisted in spite of it, which to me, it really brings this idea of if you want to try a new project or try a new hobby or trying to start a business, trying to start anything that you're unsure of, the fear of failure in comparison to some of the trials and tribulations that people have endured before you pale in comparison. How much of the fear of failure is located solely in your own mind, as opposed to your mind and the reality of being punished severely. So it was, to me, to see Frederick fail at his first attempt at escaping, and then eventually finding a way, is inspiring to me. And the way that he escaped is not known, or it's not at least discussed in his book about it. Because at the time of this book, which was written in 1845, it was about 20 years before slavery had been abolished. So for protection reasons, Frederick does not tell us how he did it, how and where he went, and he tells us where he ended up, but how he got there and the means of getting there, he doesn't share. He doesn't want to give the white man the type of information that would potentially make it harder for blacks to escape because of the information that he was touting. And you might think that you might, as I did, getting to the end of the book and saying, how did he do it? I want to know what he did to figure a way out. It made me realize that it goes, this idea of the pursuit of freedom, the pursuit of a better life, the ability to be accountable for you and have more control over your destiny, that goes beyond the tactics or the playbooks. And it makes me think of a situation where I found myself as a sophomore in college with immense anxiety of what am I going to do when I graduate? What career am I going to pick? Am I smart enough? Am I able to work hard enough? You name it, filled with anxiety. Using the position that I had as a student to interview business owners, CEOs, executives, high performers, interviewing them one-on-one, asking them how they did what they did to get to where they were. And it was great to develop relationships with these people and to hear them and to gain perspective from where they came from. But I always left the conversation with not a blueprint for myself. And I remember talking to a CEO of a relatively large organization where I'm from, and learning about his past, learning about his history, learning about how he got there. I left the office with this realization of, I don't have the answer for me. I don't have the playbook that I can follow the way that he did that's going to play out the way I want it to. And I realized that, yeah, it's great to learn from these other people, but what they did is not going to necessarily work out for you. You have your own life to live. You have your own path to blaze. And it's frightening. It's frightening not to have the instructions that you get when you're taking a test on just tell me what I need to do to get an A. Life isn't like that, and it's scary, but it, at the same time is beautiful, because in that in those experiences of pursuing freedom, pursuing control over your destiny, it can only be earned through your efforts and through the experiences that you have to endure. And on the other side of that is impactful stories, impactful data, impactful insight that you can convey and share with others, not as a prescription and not as a step-by-step ingredient book, but more so as for context and for guidance that may be helpful and useful to others who are pursuing the same path of freedom. So with that, if you haven't yet, check out Frederick Douglass, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. You may realize that although you live in a different time, a different life, potentially a different culture, you may realize that you have more in common with Frederick than you have differences. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great week. And until next time, much love.